down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how's everybody doing? It's Monday night. Welcome to another episode of TogChat. I'm Joe Edelman, your host. And yes, I know I have to record a new opening and get rid of the Nikon camera soon, I promise. Somebody asked if I'm going to drop the brand new Olympus camera. No, I'll try and find something original to do with the Olympus, but don't worry, that camera was not harmed in the making of that video, I promise. So anyway, how's everybody doing? We got a lot of people here tonight already. Mike's here, Dave is here, Cassandra, hey there, Troy, Chris, Roderick, James Brown's here, Mike's here, Link is here, Geraldo from Brazil, James, ton of people. Sven even made it, but he was late tonight. I think he was napping. So, hey gang, once again, thank you for tuning in tonight and hanging out. I hope, especially for you regulars, the ones that were here last week, if you were here last week, especially if you're here at the end, I hope you got your 90 minutes in of shooting this week. If you didn't, and you're already here, that means you owe me 90 minutes. So before next Monday, you got to get in 90 minutes of shooting. Why 90 minutes? Well, because if you're going to spend 90 minutes watching me blabber, you need to make sure that you're spending at least 90 minutes with the camera in your hand taking pictures. So, hey, listen, guys. Wow, we got people from Poland all over the place. You guys are like awesome. So, great to see all of you. Thank you for checking in. Let's get our business stuff out of the way. As always, please do me a favor. It takes you like 2 seconds, and it really doesn't hurt, I promise. But hit that thumbs up button underneath the video there. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And of course, if you haven't done that already, please subscribe. I finally topped that magical 100,000 mark this week. So now it's on for the long haul to get up there to 200,000. But without you guys, I couldn't have done that. So I really, really appreciate it. And of course, social media, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For those of you that haven't been following me on Instagram, you might want to go ahead and follow me on Instagram because I've been doing some stuff lately that people apparently really like. And that is showing some of my images, but also, you know, that little swipe right feature, letting you guys see the lighting diagrams that go along with them. So it's kind of almost like a little mini lighting tutorial on Instagram, and I'm trying to post at least 2 of those every week. So you want to check in for that. And of course, don't forget, if you haven't done so already, comments are greatly appreciated, certainly here in the chat window, but also underneath the video. The ones in the chat window, for some reason, they disappear when this is all over, but the ones underneath, they do stick around. And so, of course, last piece of business this week, there's a new video that came out. It's been getting a crazy amount of attention, but basically the video is my goodbye letter to Nikon. If you haven't seen it yet, the link is there in the chat window. For those of you that haven't seen it, first of all, what could you possibly have had more important to do on a Monday than watch that video? But if you haven't checked it out, not to disappoint you, but there's no bashing in there. There's no Nikon bashing. There's no Sony bashing. There's a little bit of straight talk. I'm very honest about why I didn't stay with Sony. I am very honest about my concerns with Nikon, but, you know, nothing horrible. Indeed, you know, as to be expected, some people still manage to get their backs up against the wall because, you know, now I'm like the world's biggest loser because I left Nikon. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, for me, the short answer, gang, and I'll tell you all straight up, and I know that I've got some new followers in here tonight that will vouch for this because I know that there are some new Micro Four Thirds people that are following me now, which is kind of nice. But honestly, more important than anything else, what I am so excited about for this change is that pretty much at every level, except for the fact that I literally am like walking around with this camera kind of glued to me right now because I'm still, you know, working to get really, really used to it. You guys know that it's really important for me to not have to think about my camera. So that's not something you do just by reading the camera manual. That's something that takes practice and actually using the camera. So I'm like literally walking with this thing everywhere and touching it and playing with it and adjusting it and manipulating it. But most importantly, the thing that I am really enjoying about this whole change, it's really letting go of bigger is better, letting go of all the crap about megapixels and dynamic range and honestly just getting back to having fun. I did another shoot today for a video that's coming out in a couple weeks, and I gotta tell you, this camera, it's just fun. Straight up simple fun. It's easy. It gets the job done. My file sizes are smaller. I'm not sacrificing quality. You guys can see images both in the video that's up there as well as check out the stuff that I have posted on Instagram. I'm not losing anything. As far as I'm concerned, I'm gained. That doesn't mean you need to go out and sell your equipment. So, you know, again, I never said that in the video. That's not the goal. What I hope a lot of you will take away from this is really the same stuff that I've been talking to all of you about for 2 years now. Stop getting so hung up in your gear. There are some people, so I say this with respect, these are the true geartographers. They are people that they really find the pleasure in the gear. That's cool. But then there are the people that really want to get into the photography part, the visual, the creative aspect. And for those folks, you got to simplify when it comes to gear. Now, that doesn't mean change your gear. That doesn't mean, you know, go with Micro Four Thirds. Not what I'm saying. It simply means don't get so hung up in the gear. Work with what you have and put your efforts into what's in front of your camera, because that's probably why you picked up a camera in the first place. So anyway, when you get a chance, check it out. It'll give you, you know, the whole background, the whole reasoning behind it. But yeah, if you're looking for me to trash somebody or that kind of stuff, no, unfortunately, that's, you know, not the case. Really the same with the buff video from the week before, which a lot of people got really upset with. It's just about why I changed it. It's what my concerns are. So anyway, that being said, go ahead, gang, and start putting your questions in. Okay, it's an open topic night tonight. In fact, let me see. Do I still have that there? No, I don't have that there. So if you have questions, go ahead and load them in. I got a couple questions that got loaded up here early, so I'm going to start with those. Steve Land wants to know if I'm planning on selling the Nikon gear or keeping it around just in case. You know, interestingly enough, and I should have probably said this in the video because a lot of people asked that question today, and I got the feeling that a lot of people were thinking, oh, he's going to hang on the Nikon gear just in case he decides he hates this Olympus stuff. So, full disclosure, the Nikon gear right now is in the basement, all opened up, sitting by the boxes. Tomorrow, it is all going to be photographed for, you know, Facebook or eBay, wherever I wind up making the specific sales. Every ounce of my Nikon gear is going away. This was not a scenario where I'm hedging my bets. I wasn't kidding when I was talking to you guys last week and even in the video where I talked about the amount. I've never put this much effort and research into purchasing a camera in my entire career. I really haven't. I mean, this is a major change. I almost consider it like a lifestyle change because it really is. I mean, it's a very, very different system than Nikon. So yeah, for me, there's really no point. I have no intention of using a Nikon. No bad feelings. I spent a lot of my years with Nikon, created a lot of really nice pictures that are really, really special to me. And I wish Nikon nothing but the best. But all indications are that their foray into mirrorless cameras is not going to be something that I'm really interested in. So I'm feeling really, really good about, you know, about this move. So the Nikon stuff is going away. So if you're interested in buying it, pay attention. I am going to try, excuse me, I'm going to try and avoid eBay because buying and selling on eBay literally is like trying to do business in the wild, wild west these days. I got burned earlier this year and lost a GoPro camera on eBay through a scam. So I will be doing my darndest to sell most of the gear to people that are followers that I know through Facebook. But after that, I will go to eBay for, you know, remaining pieces and that. So I'll be posting all of it by this coming weekend. So you'll be able to see links on my, you know, my Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested, by all means, once that stuff goes up, feel free to, you know, check it out. So Aaron Robbins, you appreciate that I'm not trashing anyone. You know, the way I look at it, Aaron, there's no reason to trash anybody. You know, we can, all jokes aside, right? I mean, we can make jokes about, you know, Canon, Nikon. I joke about Pentax all the time, or just because. And actually, just so you guys know the history behind that, my Pentax joking, I love the Pentax K1000. I used one of those for a couple years way back in the day. Pentax is fine. They don't have a particularly big system, but the whole history of my joke about Pentax, there's a YouTube video. Hopefully you're all familiar with a photographer by the name of Joey Lawrence, incredibly talented photographer. He did a rap video about his cameras. And in the video, Pentax is kind of the butt of the joke. And so I don't know why that stuck with me, but it just stuck with me. And so, I use it. But beyond that, Aaron, there's really no point. And even, a lot of people felt that I trashed Pulse Buff. That was not my goal. And the great part of it is the company, if you go look at that video, look at the comments underneath the video. The great part is the company, Pulse Buff, was actually very gracious. They commented on the video and I approved it. It's there. And they actually made my point probably better than I did. And that is that, by people having a voice like I do, and by being able to kind of push and prod like that, it helps keep these companies honest. It helps keep them motivated, and it helps drive them. It also helps, let them know what people really want and need from them. So, they were very reassuring in their comments back that, they are still innovating and they've got cool stuff coming. And I hope they do. I have no ill will towards the company. My change was simply a matter of, it was important to me, since I had gone to the trouble of recommending this equipment and found out that half of my user base or my viewership can't use it or can't purchase it. I wanted to be working with equipment that people could actually get their hands on. And unfortunately, it's impossible to, make that 100% of everybody, but Interfit gives me that opportunity for a much greater reach than what I was able to do with Buff. And that's it. I stand by every word I said in that Buff video about the Digibee. It was, it's a great product. So anyway, Brendan, why not a 1-inch sensor versus what you're getting? I looked at the Nikon 1 or whatever, that little series is they have, the one that they've discontinued. That was just a little too small for me. And I looked at them years ago. That was not part of my recent decision. And obviously, especially given that Nikon is dropping that line, that was all the more reason, not to even consider that. So yeah, that was, for me, wasn't even, kind of part of the equation of should I, shouldn't I, etc. But John Lai, new video idea, where to sell your camera equipment. Well, I will tell you this, if I have anywhere near the bad experiences that I've had in the last year while I'm selling this Nikon equipment, I literally may wind up doing a video about the problems with it. I will be honest with you. I've been scammed 3 times. If you guys remember, I used to have 2 D810 bodies, and I sold one of them and essentially basically wound up trading sideways, and I picked up a D500. I had gotten the D500 so that I could do some APS-C stuff to, show you guys some comparisons, etc. Literally within 3 minutes of posting that D810, I got a sale notice on it. And it turned out to be a complete scam. Fortunately, I hadn't shipped it. I had doubts right from the get-go because the person started getting very pushy with their messaging and had all kind of questions, and everything just felt off like from minute one. The fact that it sold at the buy now price, which was actually a pretty high price, I was really surprised. So yeah, so fortunately I didn't get burned there, but I've actually had a lot of really dicey situations with eBay. So, I'll tell you guys straight up, to do any business on eBay at this point with cameras, you have to be really careful. And most importantly, make sure you follow the rules to the letter. The way I got burned on the GoPro, I think it was DIYphotography.net, either them or Petapixel recently wrote an article about the same scam happening on Facebook. So what happened was, the GoPro sold. 10 minutes after it sold, I got a message from the buyer, and the payment went through right away. Payment went through immediately. 10 minutes later, I got a message from the buyer, and they said, hey, I just moved. Can you ship the camera to my new address in Delaware? The buyer's address was in Texas. I thought nothing of it. It was a sincere message. The grammar was correct. The spelling was correct, all that kind of stuff. The payment was already here, so I packed it up and shipped it. And then 2 days after I shipped it, it hadn't been delivered yet by the U.S. Postal Service, but 2 days after I shipped it, I got a notice from eBay that the buyer's account had been hacked. This person purchased it, sent me the message, said, hey, ship it to here. And the fact that I did that voided the seller protection, which means that you have to ship it to the address that eBay has listed for the buyer, regardless of what the buyer asks you to do. If you agree to ship it to another address, you are not protected at all in the case of a scam. And so I contacted the United States Postal Service right away, spent $12 to have, a hold put on it. They told me they were going to stop it. And then I got a delivery notice like 30 some hours later, and sure enough, it was gone. And I filed an appeal with PayPal, had all the, information there, and, too bad on me. I lost the camera. So it's about I think it was like 120 or 140 bucks that I was out. It was an older GoPro, so fortunately it wasn't disastrous, but yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. So definitely, eBay still has a lot of value. I'm sure that some of this stuff is going to wind up going out on eBay, but it's definitely going to be kind of my last choice at this point. I'm going to try, one of the luxuries of having an audience like I do, I'm going to try to sell with people that I am familiar with and know. Then, we'll go from there. So let's see here. Brendan, let us know about the Interfit Honey Badger customer service. If you're Joe Blow. So, Brendan, I know, nothing firsthand. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. Okay. Obviously I've just started using the company's gear. I haven't had any go down. I will tell you this. Okay. What I did before I discussed the Interfit strobes is did a lot of Googling. I talked with 3 photographers that I know personally who have been using Interfit for a few years, and basically said, hey, give me the rundown on Interfit. What do I need to know? Any issues with them, etc. Okay. So, Brendan, it sounds like you are not a fan of my Interfit video, and that's cool. If you just want to harass me about it, so be it. But I will tell you this. There's one thing that I don't do. When you're watching a video that I produce, here tonight, I'm talking off the top of my head. You get it raw, you get it unfiltered. When you see one of my videos, it has been researched. Everything I teach, certainly, it's based on my experience, based on my knowledge, but I don't take just that and spit it out there like a lot of YouTubers do. I go back and I research to make sure that I'm giving you factual information that is correct. Now, in the case of that Pulsey Buff video, everything in that video is factually correct. The things that are labeled as my opinions were my opinions, and they were labeled accordingly. So, yes, you might have noticed I did not talk about Interfit's customer service because I do not have any personal experience with them. But all the information that I garnered prior to being able to do that video indicated that there is no reason to be concerned, that they are a company that is out there really working for photographers. And honestly, they're a company that really embraces the kinds of values that I teach to you guys. Remember, I'm the guy that's like, don't spend the most money you can possibly spend on gear. Buy only what you need. DIY what you can. All that kind of stuff. So here's a company that's putting out a product that's, every bit as good as the Buff product. And they're doing it for less money. And it's available all around the world. So Brendan, I get it. You're not going to accept that answer. But hey, that's the answer. Okay? All right, gang. So where are we at here? Let's scroll back up, see what we're missing for questions. Hey, Doreen's here. Hey, Doreen, how you doing? So, Martin Tran, terms and conditions can be a B. Yeah, they can be. That's for sure. Jean-Edward Calvino's got a question here. After shoot, I get feelings and thoughts of, what if my client does not like my pictures and they get disappointed with the work I did? This has never been the case. Do you have any suggestions to avoid this? Jean, that's actually a great question. I used to think that was something that only I dealt with, okay? Because I feel the same way. I've always felt the same way. I feel the same way when I hit publish on a video. What if people universally tell me it sucks? Right? I mean, that's part of the creative process. It's, you know, having to kind of let go of things and realize that people will judge it. I dealt with that pretty much all my life. And I had just taught myself, you know, hold your breath and move on. That was really kind of my process. A couple of years ago, just by chance, there was a local wedding photographer that I had invited to be a member of a panel. Link, thank you so much, man. I'll get to your question in just a second. I had invited this gentleman to be a panelist on a creativity panel for a college course that I was teaching at the time. Okay. So I hadn't seen the guy in a few years. I admire his work. I knew him from back in my newspaper days. He too had started as a newspaper photographer. And before the class started and we did the panel, him and I were just kind of catching up, shooting the breeze. And he joked about how pretty much every day that he goes to shoot a wedding, he starts that morning out in the bathroom hugging the toilet because he's so nervous that he's throwing up. And he's that nervous because he has incredible respect for the amount of responsibility that he has for that couple for that day, and the fact that he is, of course, taking money for that. So that actually made me feel a lot better, ironically, because it was like, okay, cool. Like, here's a guy whose work I really admire, especially as a newspaper photographer. I love this guy's work, and his wedding work is brilliant. And I'm like, cool. Like, and it's funny because after all these years, you would think that maybe I would have had that conversation with someone, and I never had. And so, here I'm finding out somebody has the same kind of worries. They feel that pressure. So, John Edward, really what it comes down to is, you have to keep pushing forward, and you have to realize that that's part of the process. And I would suggest that if you ever stop having that fear, that you have stopped caring about your work. And even worse yet, that you've potentially stopped caring about your clients. And that's not a good thing. So I guess the short version is, I think you are being... you're being completely normal by doing that. So, okay. Amateur Media Group, you were not the only one that could watch the video at 720p. Totally on me. My fault. An error. In Final Cut. Exported it. Wrong settings. Done. And I made that realization when it was up at about 3,000 plus views. So I was not going to pull it and start it over. Obviously, I don't normally do my videos at 720p, so I apologize for the horrible viewing experience at 720p. But yeah, it's totally on me. It was not intentional. It was completely a mistake and an oversight. That's the best answer I got. So, okay. All right, Link Williams has a question. Do I use... Igor, thank you, man. I will get to your question right after Link's, okay? And guys, by the way, for those of you, if you've got a question that you really need answered, I will do my best to get all these answers in tonight. We got a ton of questions here already, some really, really good ones. If you've got a question that you absolutely need answered, Super Chat, that little $sign down in the bottom left-hand corner. Anything from $1 up to $500 if you really, really love me. That will get your question answered. But I'm going to do my best to get everybody. So I appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys being here. Okay. So Link's question, do I use on-camera flash modifiers like the Lumisphere, mini softboxes, flash bender, etc.? So I personally, at this point in my career, Link, don't use a lot of that stuff, mainly because I don't do a lot of speedlight work. However, you will be happy to know I have, in fact, it's sitting in my studio right now. I finally gotten all three companies worth of stuff. I have the full product line from Rogue, the flash benders. I have the full product line from Magmod, and I have the full product line from LumaQuest. Okay, I'm going to be doing a video, probably come out right before Christmas, that is essentially kind of a comparison of all of these options with my recommendations about kind of which ones I would pick from each. So unfortunately, again, if we're going to go for that best label, which I hate that best label, because really what the label should be is, the best for your needs, right? I don't believe that there's a best in anything when it comes to photography gear. But I'm going to go through, I'm going to compare those things. I learned back in the dark ages as a photojournalist, we didn't have those kind of modifiers. In fact, LumaQuest was one of the first companies that came along. So they're out of the three that I mentioned. LumaQuest is the oldest. They've been around the longest. And most new photographers would look at the LumaQuest stuff and say, it's plasticky and it's like really kind of old-fashioned looking. It is. But you know what? Here's the cool part. True story. Do your research. Out of all three of the brands that I mentioned, and out of any of the others, it could be Gary Fong, any of them, okay? But when you talk about Magmod, which, by the way, I love the Magmod stuff. I'll tell you right now. Flashbender, I love a few of their pieces. Really love them. By Rogue, okay? But out of the three, the only one that has solid light physics, so LIGHT, light physics, behind the design is LumaQuest. Do a little bit of research on the founder of LumaQuest. His name is Quest, Quest, Quest Couch. Obviously, Quest is where the LumaQuest comes from. So they actually have, it's got a lot of science behind his, which is really cool. LumaQuest stuff, it's not sexy by any means, okay? So again, it's all a trade-off. So I'm going to do basically a comparison. And part of the reason why, and I got all three of these companies to agree to it, so they all know that I'm like lumping them all together, okay? Is because I want people to be able to see that, unfortunately, a lot of times you're all stressing too much about what's best. Because if you take the time to do a little bit of learning, you could take any one of the sets and make them work for you just fine. It's a matter of understanding, what does one set give me that the other one doesn't, and how do I make up for it? All good photography is problem solving. So one of the big things, I'll give you an example. For the LumaQuest stuff, the angles of the diffusers are the proper angles to maximize the light spread. Whereas Magmod and Flashbender don't do that by design. But the Flashbender ones in particular are like completely flexible. So if you pay attention to those angles and understand what the proper angles are and set them accordingly, problem solved, right? So it may be more beneficial to you because the Flashbenders will fold up a little flatter and a little bit more pliable and flexible than the LumaQuest. So again, it's a trade-off any way it goes. It's hard to say that there's kind of a perfect piece. But Link, that video is coming. I've got all the stuff downstairs now, so I will be working on that, okay? So Igor, looking for your outside studio tips, shooting family, kids, in snow conditions. As far as snow stuff, one of the great things about snow is realizing that you've got a great reflector underneath your subject. So you do sometimes have to be a little bit careful, specifically if it's a bright sunny day with snow. There is that possibility that you are going to get light coming back up, really hot light, which means you'll get top shadow. So you want to be a little bit careful there, okay? Plus the other challenge is if you're going to do those portraits with families and kids on a bright sunny day in snow conditions, I would honestly do everything possible to get them into a shaded area, just because they're going to be squinting, because that white snow is going to magnify that light so much. So, essentially, I would do your best to try and get them into a shaded area, maybe get them to a spot where they're able to look at a darker background behind the camera, so they're not dealing with super, super hot light that's going to cause them to squint. But from my personal taste, now, Igor, a lot of people will, disagree with this because the trendy thing today is you got to take strobes and modifiers outside and you got to overpower the sun. I'm sorry, I'm a studio guy, but when I go outside, I am very preferential to natural light because I understand light, because I know how to find good light, and I know how to recognize it when I see it and then work with it. So I don't feel the need to be able to take a strobe out, shoot on high-speed sync, overpower the sun, yada, 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 just like every other zombie photographer in the world does. That's just boring. I'd much rather work with natural light. So, that being said, I would, I would basically try to put the most attention on keeping your subjects at a point where they can see, where you've got nice, natural, even light. And then, of course, the big challenge after all of that is something with an attractive background. Work with shallow depth of field, and you'll be good to go. If you have to do any lighting management whatsoever, I would use reflectors. That's what I would recommend. Okay. So, all right, let's work our way back up here. Steven Stiles. Joe, if you could say something additional to Nikon or Nikon users, what would it be? And do you think that Nikon is listening? Well, here's the interesting thing, Steven. If you go to YouTube and you search for the word Nikon, I think my video comes up like number 3 under the word Nikon. So if Nikon is listening, they're probably not real happy about that right now. I think what I would say to Nikon is, obviously, I wish them the best. I seriously, guys, everybody thinks, oh, he hates Sony. He said, no, I don't hate these companies, okay? I've been really honest about, my concerns. I would not, literally, sincerely, I would not wish any of them ill will at this point, because that would be the equivalent of wishing many of you ill will if one of those companies went belly up and you're all stuck with their gear. This stuff's expensive, okay? And I believe all the words that I say about how important it is to really know your gear and to really be happy with it. So that's why at no point in time did you hear me in this Olympus video encourage people to switch. So I think, what would I say to Nikon? I would say to Nikon, like, they gotta work harder. That's what I would say. Nikon's been through some tough times, all right? Both, and let's face it, Nikon and Canon, they kind of got caught with their pants down. They got caught relaxing and enjoying their status. And Sony walked right by them with their chest out proud. And you got to give Sony a lot of credit for that. It's not like Sony did some little stealth thing here. Sony came just right up and said, here we are, and just kept right on walking. And now they're looking over their shoulder at Nikon and Canon, right? So I mentioned in the video, for me, it would appear, of course, we don't know until it comes out. So Joe could be grossly wrong. But for all accounts, it appears that the Nikon mirrorless camera is going to have its own new series of lenses. So we're not going to have those F-mount lenses anymore. There's going to be a new series. And based on what we know about mirrorless and the flange distances and everything, that completely makes sense. But one of the biggest reasons that we know Nikon and Canon have taken so long in this process is because they have a tremendous amount of legacy gear out there. And I think that most of you would agree it would be devastating for a company like Canon or Nikon to turn around and say, hey, we're going to switch everything to mirrorless now. This is where all our research and development is going to be. And all those old lenses, too bad, you'll have to buy new ones. That's not going to go over well. And we all know, even if they did say that somebody in China would start working on an adapter like immediately. But as I also mentioned in the video, I'm not a big fan of having to use adapters. I don't care how good quality the adapter is. I just think that's ridiculous. So, I would say to Nikon, I feel sorry for them right now in the sense that I grew up Nikon proud. I grew up where, one of the things that made you a pro, which we all know this isn't what really makes you a pro, okay? But one of the things that was kind of your label as a pro was the fact that you had a Nikon camera around your neck. And that hasn't been the case in a very, very long time. I mean, how many Olympics has it been now where, we wind up seeing all the pictures of all the white lenses at the Olympics? That's been going on for at least the last, 18, 20 years, okay? So I would just like to see Nikon. They've been through some tough times financially. I mean, supposedly they've done a lot of restructuring. They're working to get back to a profit. I would love to see, I mentioned this in the video, I would love to see Nikon and Canon get together and share some technology. I think there's a lot of value to that. They could benefit a lot from that. Nikon has probably spent a lot more money than they needed to on the development of the sensors for the D850 because they left Sony. They went to another company. It's an Israeli company that does their sensors now. Sony is awesome with sensors, whether you like Sony or not. They're awesome with sensors. Sony has a lot to do with the history of the Olympus digital cameras, for that matter. Okay, so I hope that they can get their butts in gear and get back to a point of prominence. As for Nikon users, Steve, I would say to them, do what I did. Work with the equipment that you are most comfortable with, that you are happiest with, that allows you to do what you want to do and do what you need to do, but have fun. And if Nikon provides that for you, then there is absolutely no reason you should have any concerns about the gear that you own or anything else. If they don't, well then, the good news is there are other options out there, a lot of other options. And before you do any of them, do your research. Don't listen to some guy on YouTube and then go buy a new camera system. Do your research. That's what I would say. So, Fielding Smith, in your previous video, it looked like you were going 100% with Ollie glass. Is there any reason for that choice? There is some great Panasonic and third-party glass as well. So, second part of your statement. Panasonic glass, third-party glass. You are absolutely correct. I completely agree with you. There is great Panasonic glass. I own some of it for my Panasonic video cameras. You are looking at me right now through the, which lens? I think it's the 20mm pancake lens. Sorry, it's not the 20mm. But anyway, you're looking at me through a Panasonic lens. For me, I was always a guy with Nikon that stuck with Nikon lenses. Never used Sigma, never used Tamron, didn't use, the third-party brands. The Tokina lens, which you guys know I all use that 100mm Tokina, that was a very recent addition. And I've talked many times about how, I couldn't believe I was using a Tokina lens. Oh my God, for me. But for the quality of that lens, and especially given the cost, it was just amazing. The reason why I tend to stick with a system and stick with a particular brand is because basically it was made to be put together, period. Does that make it better? Yeah, a little bit it does, because it's machined and designed to work that way. Does that mean you're making a mistake if using a Panasonic lens on an Olympus camera, vice versa? Oh gosh, no. I mean, that's why Panasonic and Olympus formed that consortium, the 4/3 consortium, okay? And that's why there are so many big name optics companies that are involved in that consortium. I will tell you that I own 2 Olympus lenses. Long before I bought the Olympus cameras, I owned them for my Panasonic cameras. So I'm familiar with, the Olympus glass. I've been using it off and on with the Panasonic cameras. But it literally comes down to wanting to stick with a brand. That way, everything turns the same direction. Everything has the same feel to it. Everything basically works the same way. And it's all designed to work together. So that's really it. Let's see, Thomas, you started with Samsung. They had good gear, but no fanboys. Yeah, and you know what, Thomas? Those little Samsung compact ones with the interchangeable lenses, I owned one of them. What's it? I'm going to get the model number wrong, so cut me a little leeway here. Was it like an NEX 300 or something like that? Or an NX 300? I had one of those that I took on a vacation, like 2 vacations running. That was a sweet little camera. It really was. But you're right, no fanboys. And let's face it, they didn't really build out a whole system. So, that's a big part of it too. A camera system's a big commitment for these companies. So, Norman B, looking for a gray paper seamless background. Would you say light or dark gray would be the best for portraits? Well, actually, Norman, I would say neither. My sincere advice to you would be go with the middle gray. In fact, here, let me switch over. Norman, on my YouTube channel. Here, I'm going to bring it up there. If you go to the YouTube channel and, Guy Wright, can I start again? Sure. We'll just start over. Okay. Guys, everybody rewind. No, I'm kidding. So, Norman, if you go to the YouTube channel on the upper right where that little magnifying glass is, type in gray background. Okay. And hit enter. And up is going to come this video, best color for backgrounds. Let me just copy that link. I'm going to paste it in the chat window for you here. And, that will give you the full explanation, save me kind of going through it in here. But basically the explanation is I would go with a middle gray. And if you watch that video, you'll completely understand why. It's actually just a lot more versatile. And the great part about a middle gray, you can make it a light gray, you can make it a dark gray, you can even make it black, and you can make it white if you light it properly. So that's why I would go with that. Okay. That's it. The NX 3000. There you go, Thomas. So, Jorge, you watch most, if not all, my videos. You don't recall seeing or hearing me talk about using light meters in the studio. I do use them in the studio more now than I ever did. So, completely honest, with digital technology, I kind of got lazy really quickly. And since I can chimp and see what was doing, I tended not to use them at first. For the last 2 years, I use them religiously. Now that I am teaching as much as I do, and of course doing the videos, I feel it's important for me to teach good habits, not bad habits. You guys have heard me gripe about some other YouTubers for teaching bad habits, or at least demonstrating bad habits. So as part of that same philosophy, I feel I have to hold myself accountable for that. So I do. I use Seaconic flash meters religiously. Shooting today, used it all the time. I have not done a video about it as of yet, but that's something that will definitely be on the horizon. Not as a product review, but just as some light metering tips for using flash in a studio. That's something that will be coming. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Scrolling back up. I answered Fielding's question. James Augustine, Herb Ritz is indeed a master of natural light. That's almost an understatement. I mean, not just a master of natural light, but he's a master of fashion photography. Incredible style. Really, really loved his work. So let's see here. Steve Land, I'm really hoping that the lack of a mirrorless from Nikon is a benefit when it does come out and they've taken the failures of others and corrected them. Steve, I hope so too. Sincerely. I mean, I really do. I'll be honest, my biggest fear right now is that this first Nikon mirrorless is going to be expensive as all get out. I have a feeling it's going to be a really impressive camera. I don't think that they are going for an entry-level mirrorless. I don't think they're going for middle of the road. I think they're going to go for a high-end mirrorless, which, if you think about it, would probably be the smart thing for them to do is, take on the A7R3, right? But I have no idea. I mean, I really don't. So I do indeed, though, hope that they've learned from, some of the other things that have gone out there. So, so let's see. Thomas Palmer, your thoughts about Capture One Pro 11? Completely honestly, I've gotten about 8 emails about it in the last week or so and have not had a chance to read a single one of them. I won't lie. With everything that's been going on, I have not delved that deep into it. Will I upgrade? Yes. Capture One for me is a piece of software that, as long as they're telling me that they are making improvements, especially I believe one of the big feature sets of Capture One 11 is that they have done some reprogramming, trimmed down the size of the program, made it a little bit faster. Speed is always a value to me with a computer. So will I make that change and upgrade? Absolutely. And I promise if you check in with me next week or probably the following week, I will gladly report back on everything that I have encountered with it. But as it stands today, I have not actually even read the emails in detail. So, Cathal, props. What are your favorite props in portrait shoots? Hardly ever use them for portraits. I like my portraits to be just about the person. Now, for beauty portraits and fashion portraits and that kind of stuff, all bets are off. And even then, I don't use a lot of props, but I use a lot of accoutrements, materials and feathers and caps and things like that. But I'm not big on props for portraits. I'll use props for modeling shots, and I'll use them in a sense where, like, I've got that person doing some kind of an activity, etc. But I'm not a big fan of props for portraits, and that's because a portrait is supposed to be about the person. So unless that prop directly relates to the person and is helping to tell me a story about that person, I don't feel that the prop belongs there. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Andy Cap, wondering why your D810 won't fire in the dark when looking at stars. Andy, that could be any number of things, like, is the battery charged? Do you have a disc in the camera? Are you on automatic? Are you on autofocus? If you're on autofocus, it may not be able to focus, in which case it won't let you depress the button all the way. There's a bunch of things that could be going on there, man. That's one of those troubleshooting things. You got to kind of take them one at a time and figure it out, okay? Lover guy, remember fixing a piece of photo paper and cutting it up and using a rubber band to hold it to a Vivitar 285. Yeah, you know what? Piece of photo paper, 3x5 cards were my favorite. Take a 3x5 card and a rubber band and put it over the back of the speedlight head. Or if you're really, really desperate, you can hold a Vivitar 283 or a speedlight, even a modern speedlight. You can hold it between these two fingers. And so you take 3 fingers up over the head and then you grab the speedlight and you get a little bit of glow, which for black and white was fine. For color, this is changing the color balance of the light and the fill. And then if you wanted just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of fill, I actually knew people, and I did it a couple of times, that would take a plastic spoon, like a cafeteria spoon, a white plastic spoon, break off part of the handle and rubber band that to the top of the speed light. And then you get like a really small reflector in the front. That wasn't going to throw much light back, but what it was nice for is if you just needed to get a catch light. If the lighting was just crappy enough, like it was kind of decent light, but it was just crappy enough that you couldn't get any catch lights in the eyes to get life in the eyes, that little plastic spoon would give you just enough of a catch light that it would bring some life to the eyes in a shot. So yeah, back in the day, we attached all kind of crazy things to a speed light to be able to get some fill. Okay. So let's see. Melnick Studios. You'd love to be able to meet me in person at the live event you're doing in Toronto with McKinnon. Wink, wink. Yeah. Hey, you know, if McKinnon ever wants to do something with me, I'm on board. But something tells me he doesn't need me at this point. He's got, you know, buddies like Casey Neistat, so I don't see him hanging out with me anytime soon. Adjustment layers in Capture 111. Awesome. Very, very cool. So where are we at here? So, okay, somebody was asking me about tethering before. So, Sambo, will I tether with the OM1 to Capture 1? Not yet. But let's make sure we've got the whole story right here, because Roman, I saw that you answered, and you're partly correct, but not entirely. So let's break this down. And I'll wind up talking a lot about tethering with Olympus as I go further in other videos. But Capture 1 does not support Olympus for tethering. But Steven Siles, thank you so much, man. Okay, he's switching to Polaroid. Yeah, good for you. Hey, Polaroid had some really cool-looking cameras at Photo Plus. I don't think they're particularly high resolution, but they were really cool-looking cameras. They're instant still. Shocker, right? Anyway, so back to Capture 1. It does not support tethering with Olympus yet. That's on Capture 1, by the way, not Olympus, okay? But it does support Olympus files. So if you're wondering how I'm tethering that, because you guys know, like, I use Tether Tools gear, I'm all about that. So at the moment, I do use the proprietary cable. It's a 3-foot cable that comes with the EM1 Mark II from Olympus. When you buy the camera, it comes with it, okay? So I have 2 cameras, I have 2 of the cables, and I will probably order a 3rd backup. The expectation is, and I'm still waiting for confirmation, but I believe Tether Tools will be selling an Olympus proprietary cord in the future. They do not have one yet. They also don't have one for Panasonic yet, okay? That being said, Olympus has their own tether software. And I'll tell you what, that was one of my big concerns in making this whole change, because you guys know I shoot tether. You know I used Capture 1. I was very happy with it. I liked the download speed. It was much faster than Lightroom. I love the Olympus Capture software. I can control my whole freaking camera, everything, on this software, and it's easy, and it's super fast. So the setup that I use, basically, when I shoot tethered with the Olympus Capture software, I have it save the raw file to the disk in the camera, and I have it send the JPEG to the computer so that I can preview what I'm shooting and make minor adjustments there. The neat part about doing that is it's instant. I can press the button, and the time it takes me to look from my subject to the computer, the image is there. It's waiting for me. It is wicked fast. So then all I do is, after shoot, I do my initial edits. I'll knock it down to the images that I'm most interested in working with. I open them up in Capture 1 and I process them. That's it. So did it add a step? Yes, it added a step to my workflow, but sincerely, I actually like the step. I was finding myself stressing in Capture 1 during a shoot because I wanted to try and do all my raw processing then, because you can. But now that I can't, that's off the table. So I'm literally just using, you know, the Olympus software, which is wicked simple and free, by the way. Okay. And then I'm still using Capture 1 to do the processing, which I really liked Capture 1 for, which is the skin tones and you know, the blending of skin tones and that. So that basically, that's the change in my workflow, but it works super simple, super easy. I'm absolutely thrilled with the process, and I was concerned about that. That was one of the reasons why I reached out to Olympus and asked to be able to test the camera for a little bit longer, because I wanted to shoot tethered. I wanted to use their software, see if I was going to find that to be really annoying, because that would have been a deal breaker for me if their software was crappy and I was going to have to jump through all kinds of hoops to be able to try and tether and use my software. That totally would have been a deal breaker. So, oh my God, the JPEG. Yeah. Hey, I've actually told you guys this before. I was a late adopter to RAW files. I didn't start shooting RAW as my primary file format until about 2008. Keep in mind the Nikon D1 came out in late 1999, early 2000. Okay, so that's basically when the first pro cameras came out. I didn't start shooting RAW as a primary file, and so now this is going to contradict what Tony had to say, and I'm not picking a fight with Tony. I believe in both of Tony's videos, the first one that caused the fuss, and then his response video to Jared. And so cut me a little slack. I don't want to be accused of misquoting him, but I'm pretty sure I've got the intent right. I believe he suggested that RAW makes a lot more sense for beginners because since you're saving all that initial data, you can correct mistakes easier, which completely good logic. There's nothing wrong with that logic. But I will say this. I'm actually really glad that I started my digital journey shooting JPEG and not RAW because it forced me to really adapt and transition from film to digital and get it right in camera. So, we're talking for 8+ years, I was paying my bills with a digital camera, shooting JPEGs and doing just fine. I was shooting commercial work. I was shooting newspaper work. I was shooting portraits and modeling portfolios and doing just fine. So, and those images that you saw in the Olympus video, that's why I made that joke, they were shot as JPEGs at the time. So, there's different ways of looking at it, and none of them are wrong. That's the thing. So, anyway, Roman, you use the Olympus software to do the tethering, but auto import it into Lightroom. Yeah, you can auto import into Lightroom. There's nothing wrong with that if you like Lightroom. It's kind of fairly well known. I'm not a Lightroom fan. I hate the import-export piece. But yeah, I mean, if that's working for you, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So, Digicam Control is free, open source software for tethering. Use it a lot with Lightroom auto import. Yeah, I actually mentioned that software in the tethering videos that I did and in the article that I wrote that's on my blog. I'm not a big fan of what I saw, but full disclosure, I haven't actually used it. So I'm just referring to, looking through the interface, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if it's working for you, that's cool. Okay. So, let's see here. Let's back on up. I know that there was a bunch. Hey Joe, talk about LEDs and what to look for when doing DIY type. James Brown. So, I would suggest that you try to get a CRI of like 85 or higher. Now, all the die-hard engineers right now be like, oh my God, no, that's way too low. That really sucks. You need like 96 or higher. No, you need like 85 or higher. The ones that I did the video on, the DIY LED lights, James, I believe they're 88 CRI. I have no color issues with them at all. And I'll be perfectly honest, when I bought those lights and built them, I didn't even know what the hell CRI is, okay? I learned about CRI when people started freaking out because they only had a CRI of 88. They're fine. So I did lots of research after that. Bottom line, keep it at 85 or higher, But that's really the biggest thing. Beyond that, just make sure that they do what you want them to do, okay? Make sure you do some research into the lumens of the lights that you're looking at because excuse me, not all LED lights are actually that bright. So especially if you get like those little cheap strips, and if you're thinking about putting a bunch of those together in that, you can put 20 of them together, so not actually going to put out that much light. So make sure you do understand lumens and how much actual light you're getting out of them. So let's see. I saw there. Oh, Nate Man, Conowingo Dam. I did not get to go yet. I'm aiming for this Friday. So fingers crossed. I did not get to go last week. My schedule didn't work out, but I will definitely let you guys know. Steven Steger, Seaconic. I'm gonna spell it wrong, aren't I? Here, wait, hang on. Seaconic. There's the brand name that I just typed in there, and I know you're gonna ask me the model number next, and I don't remember. I want to say it's the 478. And I believe that's it, but I will check and I will let you know if you check in with me next week, if that's not the one. So, Brendan Ormsby, what is your opinion of the Sony RX10 IV? Why can't they make that 24 to 600 lens sold separately? I've never used that camera, Brendan. I've actually heard a lot of good stuff about it, but I've never used it. And as far as the lens, unfortunately, I know I've done a bunch of gear videos lately. I'm not really a gear guy. For me, that's not where my pleasure in photography comes from. That's been a big part of why I made this switch. So yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a little bit more background there, Brendan, but I'm really not that up to speed on that one. So, let's see. Peter Tran, he felt burned by Samsung. Yeah. So did they not make those Samsung cameras anymore? You guys are talking like they don't make them anymore. That's a shame if they don't. So, I had a couple other questions here too. Al B had a question early on tonight. Watched your modeling portfolio videos. Those are some really, really old ones that I have on the channel. What's the approximate outcome of the 2-day shoot in terms of number of photos? Enough for a model to take forward and get jobs? Yes. So, Al B, when I was doing modeling portfolios full-time as my living, which is when those videos were made, in the course of a single day, I would shoot anywhere between 9 and 14 different shots. Now, when I say different shots, let me be clear. That's different hair, different makeup, different outfit, different lighting, different background. 9 to 14 times, okay? Which is kind of insane. With the right planning, it's really easy to do, okay? That being said, I generally sent new models into an agency with no more than 10 photos, frequently as few as 5 or 6. Just like I tell photographers, you can look like a rock star with 5 and a hack with 10. Same applies with models for the same reasons. The more photos you show, the more potential there is to show flaws and things that are not ultimately flattering and not marketing you properly. Also, in the case of a model, the more photos they walk in with, they're basically putting a big S on their forehead that says sucker, meaning this is a person that will potentially spend a lot of money to get signed by an agency. And there are agencies, unfortunately, there are even good agencies that do have ways that they try to make money from the model. Some of it, the model needs to spend the money for. Others, the model needs to be very cautious at avoiding. So, you go in with too many pictures, it kind of sets you up to be a sucker there too. So contrary to what a lot of people think, they don't need a whole lot of pictures. And the big reason for that is, most people don't realize what a modeling portfolio should be. It's not about showing that the model is photogenic and pretty and all that crap. Nobody gives a damn. That's not what modeling is. Plus, when the model's standing there in front of the people, they can see that. They don't need 20 pictures to show them that the girl's photogenic or has a nice figure. So that's another part of the reason why you don't need tons and tons of photos in a portfolio, and shouldn't, especially not when a girl's just starting out. Okay? Let's see here. Brendan Wormsley, any knee pads you recommend? Nah, I would probably hit Home Depot. That would be your best bet, man. So Thomas, so Samsung's all done. Wow, that's a shame. I mean, I really did like those little cameras. So WAF 4545. Did I jump straight to Capture One after Lightroom, or have you tried any Lightroom? I've never used Lightroom. Well, other than for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes, like when it first came out. No, I hate the import-export feature. Hate it. Also, it's worth understanding that the develop panel in Lightroom, in other words, the panel where all the secret sauce, all the magic happens, develop panel, that is the exact same piece of software that is the Camera Raw plugin in Photoshop. So for those of you that are on a Windows or a Mac that has both programs installed, if you go into your system files or your program files on a Windows machine and you find the Camera Raw plugin and either like move it or rename it or delete it and then try to launch Lightroom or try to launch Photoshop, neither program will work. Okay? So both programs literally share this separate program, which is called Camera Raw plugin. It's just that they display it differently because obviously the Camera Raw plugin in Photoshop looks different in its layout and its color scheme than the develop panel in Lightroom, but it's the same piece of software. So I went from using Photoshop and Camera Raw to using Capture One to tether, period. When I started tethering, I used Capture One back in the early days. So that was my flow. Okay. David, does the same rule apply for a photographer when submitting their portfolio to a marketing manager for a company to shoot their line? Yeah, man. I mean, keep it simple, stupid. You know, you're probably not going to do it with just 10 pictures, but you've got to be very honest with yourself with every single image that's in your portfolio. Does it really need to be there? What does this image show that the last image doesn't show? And so on. Okay. You know, once you've shown that you can do something, you don't have to show 50 images of the same thing or 20 images of the same thing. So the challenge for photographers, and it's the same challenge for models, actually. A girl gets in front of a camera, spends 2 days with a photographer, has a blast. So there's an emotional attachment to those pictures because she had fun. And look at how cool the pictures look. Like, that's neat. So she wants to show them all. Completely makes sense. It's no different for us as photographers. We had fun taking the pictures. This particular shot represents an accomplishment in terms of something we've never been able to do before. But does that necessarily mean it's going to get us work or should be shown to the world? No. So the hardest challenge in kind of working your portfolio is getting past the emotional attachment that you have to the images and being able to turn around and look at your work from the outside in to say, what does this work say about me? What does it say about my capability? What does it say about what I can bring to the table, etc.? That's really what you're trying to do there. Okay. Gene Waddle, how do I really feel about the import feature? Yeah, Lightroom is a cool program. If only I could disable that feature. I mean, why can't I just open up a folder and work on it and close it? Done. You know, and I realized that a big part of what Lightroom was designed to do was the cataloging in that, but I have a filing system that works wonderfully for me. I don't need that cataloging, and I don't need a visual catalog, which, by the way, what is it that slows Lightroom down? The catalogs, right? So, yeah, that's why I use Bridge. For those of you that aren't familiar with Bridge, when you buy Photoshop, Bridge comes with it. Bridge is basically Lightroom without the import-export and the cataloging. That's what Bridge is, and so it's great. Instead of having a develop panel, you just click open in Photoshop and it brings up Camera Raw, which is exactly the same as a develop panel. So it's essentially the same workflow without the import export. So, Babik, thank you so much. Guys, I always talk about him when he's here. It's actually, you know, this is what I love about what I do. For those of you that don't know who this gentleman is, go Google him. He's in Canada. Babak. You guys like my beauty work? My stuff is child's play compared to what this guy does. This guy is like the rock star of hair photographers. If you ever dabble in the hair world, there's a big competition around the world. It's called NAHA, and it's basically a competition for hairstylists and that. In that realm, Babak is a god. He routinely presents for that group and shoots live on stage for them. But check his stuff out. For those of you that like beauty work, and especially I know a lot of you are fans of, like, you know, Irene Rudnick and Jessica Koblishi, all those people, go check out Babak. He's been around a lot longer than they have doing this stuff all over the world. I really, really admire this guy's work. So awesome. So let's see, where are we at here? Let me scroll up. Brendan, how to make it as a sports photog? You're trying. You know, I won't lie to you, Brendan. That's kind of tough, and it's mainly tough. So if you're talking about, like, you know, major league sports like baseball, football at a major league level, it's tough in today's world, and it's mainly because the number of outlets is greatly reduced. You know, newspapers are going by the wayside, magazines are going by the wayside. So, you know, it's tough. Now, if you're talking about sports for like little kids, like going out and shooting like high school sports, college sports, that kind of stuff. Let's start at colleges. College sports, it's a matter of getting to know the marketing people at the college. Some colleges have, you know, a very big marketing team. Others have a very small marketing team. But the bottom line is get to know the marketing people. If you're talking high schools or even community type sports, that type of stuff, be prepared to hand them money. It's a kickback process, okay? You have to pay to play. That's basically the way it works at those levels. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, that's, you know, that's how it is. Dave Dundas, are you insinuating that I sometimes exaggerate? Dave Dundas says he's not exaggerating. Very nice work, Babak. Would I ever exaggerate? Come on now, man. So Eric Big Easy, when you do headshots, how many shots do you include for the subject and model? Well, so basically, if we're talking about an acting or a modeling headshot, well, actually, pause. Let me rephrase that. If we're talking about an acting headshot, the actor only needs one. Okay. Now, there are certain times where an actor's agent may say, hey, we want you to have one acting headshot for this look and one acting headshot for another look. If it's an actor that can go kind of down two very diverse paths in terms of the way they may be cast. That can happen. But generally speaking, they need one. If we're talking like a business headshot, generally speaking, they need one. You know, if it's going to be social media, LinkedIn, whatever, okay? So when I do them, basically for a sitting fee, they are getting to see some proofs online. They're going to pick one shot. I will retouch that one shot. If they want additional shots from that session, they will pay a per image fee for retouching and for me to provide them with, another file for that image. That's pretty much how I approach that. Okay. For models, it's going to be a little bit different, only in the sense that even if they only have 10 images to start in their portfolio, there's a very good likelihood they'll have at least 2 headshots out of that 10. So, but usually a model is not going to come to a photographer just for a headshot. Usually if a model's coming to a photographer, she's hoping to get a couple shots, to work with. Keep in mind, when I did portfolios as a business, the idea was I was essentially providing a one-stop shop. So in other words, shoot your portfolio with me and I was going to put together the whole portfolio for the girl to get started. So I wasn't dealing with a lot of people where it's like, hey, I just need this picture or that picture. Certainly that happens. That could very much be the case, but at least for professional corporate type stuff and or like acting stuff, they really only need one. That's all they're after. So, okay. No, actually they don't really match. It's just digital color. These are actually blue gray. This is purple. Sorry, Melnick. I didn't match them. So let's see here. I think I had one other one. So since I actually just mentioned it with headshots, Roman had a question earlier on. If I could talk a little bit about fulfillment, like specifically, how do I deliver my final images to clients? What formats do they get? And how do I do the proofing? And he asked specifically with regards to portraits and products. So Roman, those are actually kind of at 2 different ends of the spectrum. So for products, that's a commercial client. And essentially at that point, I am all about work for hire. Always have been. It was really, really unpopular back in the 80s and 90s. It's not as unpopular today, but work for hire basically means you're going to pay me a fee to shoot this job. I'm going to hand you the images and you can do whatever you want. If you can make $1 million off of those images, good for you. I'm thrilled. Okay. And I've done that through a lot of my career simply because I don't want to have to chase people and do all the accounting on, wait, they used my picture here, they used my picture there, all this stuff. Nah, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not why I became a photographer. I didn't become a photographer because I wanted to run a business. That was the necessity that went along with being a photographer. So I would do work for hire where basically I would charge for, my time to do the shoot and then the work was theirs. If they needed retouching or any additional prep done, that was part of the fee that got added on, et cetera. And then that's what they paid for. For portraits, you generally do not want to do that, okay? Understand that for portrait photographers, wedding photographers, the best portrait photographers in the world and the best wedding photographers in the world, they make their money by selling pictures, not by taking pictures. They make their money by selling pictures, okay? So proofing today, much of it's done online, but you will find the best portrait and wedding photographers do their proofing in person. They do reveals where the person sits down, they sit next to them, etc. Those are the people that are making the big buck. Okay. And then in terms of, how do I deliver? For me, 99% of what I deliver is digital. A portrait photographer does not want to be, making 99% of what they deliver digital. They're going to want it to be prints. That's where the money's at. It's in prints. That's also where the markup is. It's in prints. Without oversimplifying it, essentially, you're going to have a reasonably priced sitting fee as a portrait photographer to get the person in the door, take their picture, and then you're going to really make your bank on the back end with the prints, okay? Tech, do I have a course doing dodge and burn tutorial for beauty photography? I don't, Tech. I've done very, very few Photoshop tutorials to this point. And the reason being, there's some really, really good stuff out there. I try not to add to the noise. There's a lot of noise on YouTube, right? I try to bring stuff to the table that is really going to add value. And full disclosure, I don't do a lot of dodge and burn work on my beauty shots because I work with a really, really awesome makeup artist that handles most of that for me in camera. Okay. Tech, I would encourage you to check out people like Aaron Nace at Phlearn, Phlearn. Great instructor. He breaks things down very, very well. He's got a tremendous depth of information that's out there and that's available. So Melnick Studios, 99.9% of my delivery is digital. Yeah, pretty much. Occasionally I will have to have a print made and then I send it off to a lab. I don't do any of my own printing at this point. Haven't done for years. For a lot of years I did. Through the modeling portfolio years, I had 2 big Epson printers sitting here in my office, but all that stuff goes out the door now if I need a print done. So Thomas Palmer, you going to try Zeiss glass? No, not going to try Zeiss glass. No interest in trying Zeiss glass. I'm not that hung up on that stuff, guys. No, I'm loving the Olympus glass so far. Tack sharp, works great, feels solid. I love the metal grips on the lenses, like awesome. So yeah, I'm just not into that, Zeiss stuff. To me, I don't doubt the quality of Zeiss lenses. So let's be clear, just so that I'm not, getting somebody's back up against the wall on gear again. But it's overpriced. I can't justify that cost. I don't get it. Just don't. So, Keith Taylor, we had Z cards or hero shots on the front, 3 looks in the back. Every model agency traded with it. Yeah. But so here in the U.S. we call them comp cards. Z cards is kind of the British/European version. They're pretty much going away at this point. All that stuff is basically being done digital, right now. So. Some agencies here in the U.S. still ask their models to print a comp card, but back in the day, a girl would automatically print 100 cards. Like if a girl was going to start modeling and start visiting agencies, she'd automatically print 100 cards. Now you would, print maybe 20, if that, because you just really don't need that many. So, Melnick Studios, do I think a TOG should shoot film at least once in their life? Dude, film? It's a 4-letter word. I don't use 4-letter words. So in all fairness, for a lot of years, I will admit, a lot of the early digital years, so probably like 2000 through 2010, actually, I kind of had the attitude that, and it was the old fart attitude. I'm not going to lie. It was like, oh yeah, like I learned better because I learned on film. That's actually crap. Once I started teaching, probably around 2012, 2013, I started to realize why. The more I talked about that, I started to realize why I learned better on film. And it wasn't because of the film. It's because the film forced me to be patient. The film forced me to slow down. And the key word in those sentences, forced. Okay? I mean, if I was shooting color transparency, I had a 7 to 14 day wait to get the images back, especially for Kodachrome. If I was shooting black and white, I still had to shoot it, go home, go to the darkroom, process it, look at it. So it forced me to pay more attention when I was shooting, because if I screwed up, I couldn't go back and reshoot it. And it forced me to be patient. It forced me to learn more and consider more. So, but the word forced is the key to all those statements. If a person is diligent, if a person cares enough, if a person is willing to put in the hard work, and if a person pays attention, you can learn equally as well as a digital photographer from scratch without ever going near a roll of film. Because realistically, the subtleties about film, the subtleties that make you successful as a film photographer, have no value to you as a digital photographer. They only have value to film. It's the forced slowness and deliberateness of the process of film that has value to any kind of photographer. So for a person who is patient, is willing to put in the hard work, that's really going to be the key. Okay. Um, Lover guy. Actually, I can't handle the Mexican Coke is too strong for me. He wants to know here, silly question, Mexican Coke cane sugar or U.S. Coke high fructose corn syrup? Now that I've completely gone off the rails. Now, I do the U.S. Coke because the Mexican stuff that's pretty intense, man. That stuff will put hair in your chest, okay? So, anyway, what else here? I used Lightroom for years. Once I tried C, won't even start. Yeah, Paulo. Again, it's just like my Olympus video, man. Whatever you're comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. Here's the thing you have to understand. For all this fuss, I really debated. So these last 2 videos I've done, and thank God, like this week, I am not doing a gear video this week. This week's video is going to be all about soft boxes and not brands. About actually using them. Okay. I really debated on doing those videos, and on one hand, I'm glad I did. On the other hand, I actually really regret them. Because here's the thing. People don't play nice. Let me be straight up. No matter how much I went out of my way to explain to people, like, this is just what I'm doing. You don't have to agree. And you should be making your own choices. People feel like overwhelmed. They've got to say why their choice is better. In all my years of taking pictures, I've never had a client ask me going into a shoot, what gear do you use? Or say, I won't hire you unless you use this kind of gear. Or say, your gear doesn't look professional. Or for that matter, have a client say, wow, your gear looks really professional. I've never had a client say to me, you shoot with Nikon? I won't hire you unless you shoot this with Canon. I've never had that. And I assure you, not a single client has ever said a word about Sony to me unless they were asking if I shot Betamax on my video. So, it's kind of like, what's the point, gang? And I get it. We all have, let's face it, we all have a lot of money invested in our gear. I don't care if you have as much gear with me or more gear than I do. In fact, somebody commented on my YouTube video today that they have 24 Nikkor lenses. I'm like, holy cow, now I feel like a complete wuss because I only had 6 and one was a Tokina. It's like, whoa, okay? But, it doesn't matter if you don't have a ton of money and you've only got 2 lenses and a cheap camera body, or if you've got a lot of money and you've got 4 camera bodies and 18 lenses. It's a lot of money. And so obviously we become very attached to that because, let's face it, we don't want to think that we were dumb enough to buy the wrong thing. And so especially if you have anxiety, oh my God, that's even worse because, wow, this guy changed. Maybe I screwed up. No. You work with the gear that does the job for you. The problem is everybody wants to hear that their gear is best. And there simply is no such thing. There simply isn't, because there's way too many variables. There are just simply way too many variables. So what's best for one guy is not best for, another guy. I've had a lot of people ask me about low light situations, okay? Sure. Micro Four Thirds is not going to do as well in really, really bad lighting as a full frame camera will. But how often have you guys seen me shooting really bad lighting? It's just not that big a deal for me, okay? And even for that matter, doing the newspaper work that I used to do, I will tell you right now, I would have no problem taking this Olympus gear into the newspaper settings that I used to shoot, which oftentimes were bad light. It's just that people want to be able to go out and shoot light by one candle in a 60 by 60 room now, and they can't understand why you can't do that with a small sensor. Well, I mean, come on. Like, really? So, David Fox, how's the camera in the iPhone 10? Really nice, man. Honestly, it's really nice. I would say basically it's pretty much everything that, is advertised. It's amazing what they can do in a phone with a camera. So, no, Thomas, Nikon stock not going to fall for me. Roman Gerber, in today's camera market, is there ever even such a thing as the wrong thing? Even the entry-level DSLR cell phone camera is usually capable. No, there really isn't. I mean, that's the thing. The only thing that's wrong, certainly it's possible to have the wrong gear for the job. But no, I mean, sadly enough, the biggest cause of bad pictures is not camera equipment. I'm sure you can all imagine what the biggest cause of bad pictures is, okay? It's usually the person holding the camera. It's not the camera. So certainly can certain cameras do things that other cameras can't? Of course. But that's no different than certain cars can do things that other cars can't, and certain trucks can do things that other trucks can't, and that's like anything else. But that's not an issue of what's better or what's worse. Hey, I forgot one piece of business earlier, and I just remembered it. And since I'm running way late, let me get this in, and then we're gonna wrap up here. I've been telling you guys for a while. Let me switch my screen over here. I've been telling you guys for a while about the PhotoFlex contest that happens every week, right? So if you don't know what that is, incoming video call, really? Who's trying to video call me? Okay, so PhotoFlex this week is giving away free to the winner a First Studio light panel kit. So here's the whole setup. So this is the whole kit. So you get the carrying bag, you get the light stand. Actually, what all is in this thing? We get, it's a 39 by 39 PVC frame and the diffusion panels and the reflector panel that goes with it. Sells for like 200 and where I had the price down, $260 is what this thing sells for. So how do you win it? It's real simple. You go to the PhotoFlex Facebook page, which is right there, okay? And I'll paste the link in here for you guys right now. And what you do is you email them 2 pictures. One, the finished shot, okay? Second one, in fact, here, let me go back and find one of their previous winners for you guys, and we'll show you one. Here's one. Here's a bunch of them. So it's their Share Your Lighting contest. I thought that was actually, here we go. So there's the finished picture, and then there's the behind-the-scenes shot. You can see the light on the light stand, the whole bit. I'm not going to blow them up, but there it is. So you email those pictures to tell us at ProMark Brands. I'm also going to put that in Melnick Studio. Yes, it's a spiel, man, because Melnick Studio, I want to see you win this contest. You're on here every week chattering at me. I want to see some of your pictures, man. Get them up there, okay? So all you got to do is send those 2 pictures in. Here's the cool part, gang. It doesn't have to be PhotoFlex gear in the behind-the-scenes shot. How many other companies are going to give you a $260 prize without using their gear, right? So you need to send your stuff in tomorrow. They announce the winners on Wednesday. They do it every week. And I would love to see you guys win this. This is a big one, man. Really big one. So let's see here. Jonathan Maxwell, the problem is when individuals read a horrible wedding blog and ask what gear you shoot with because the article only said to hire photogs. Yeah, but here's the thing, Jonathan. That was like a totally BS kind of article. I get that. But you know what? The way I look at it is a good photographer. Now, I'm going to upset some people here, but guys, I'm telling you straight. A good photographer doesn't give a damn about that article. You know why? Because a good photographer doesn't have to worry about what some blog says. A good photographer creates photography that people will look at and say, my God, I want that. Right? The most successful photographers in the world are not the most successful photographers in the world because they're great salespeople. They may be great salespeople, and that certainly helps their business. But they're the most successful photographers in the world because their photography is amazing. And so, I did see that article when that happened. I saw the fuss about it. I think it was Jason Lanier or somebody did a, big reply to it and all that stuff. Yeah, it's like a BS story. I completely agree. But at the same time, people that are already successful and people that are doing the right things to be successful, I promise you that article had 0 impact on their ability to earn money. 0. And that's really the key. Photographers have a bad habit of feeling entitled. I spent all this money on my gear. I've got professional gear. I watch all these YouTube videos. I know all this stuff. I took 3 pictures last year, so I'm great. And they expect everything to be handed to them. They expect that they shouldn't have to work hard. They expect that they shouldn't have to compete for money. Well, gang, I hate to tell you, our entire economy is built on the concept of competition. Otherwise, we would have monopolies, and only monopolies, and there would be no business. So, to me, I don't see the issue with that stuff at all. But yeah, I mean, it was totally like a BS point that they made. So, Lipscomb, I can never recall a carpenter pitching a fit over which brand of saw another carpenter was using. I thought they argued about hammers. Isn't it hammer brands or screwdriver brands? Something like that, right? I don't know. All right, gang. So it's like going to a friend's house for dinner and saying that was great. You must have really nice pots and pans. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it. All right, gang. Listen, I am going to say goodnight. Okay. First of all, thank you all for being here tonight. It was great to have such a big crowd. I appreciate your time. So remember, we have a new deal. This is the new deal. No other YouTuber is going to make you this deal. But I'm really serious. And you know, I can only take you on your honor because I'm not going to make you all prove it. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you folks because you folks helped me reach 100,000 subscribers. You folks spend your time with me here every week. But I have a concern about this YouTube stuff. I'm learning more and more and more that I've got followers, which means other YouTubers have followers, that spend more of their week watching YouTube videos about photography than they do actually taking pictures and practicing photography. So I've been on here for just about 90 minutes. I am begging you guys, if you were here tonight and watched this, if you're going to come back next week, please promise me that you will get in at least 90 minutes this week with your camera. And if you don't, I am telling you it is okay. Next Monday night, don't watch my TogChat. Please spend that 90 minutes and pick up your camera and practice and come back the following Monday. I'll be here, okay? But I don't want you guys living vicariously through me or any other YouTuber. I want you taking pictures. Just like I talked about in this Olympus video, for me, it's time. I want to get back to having fun. Yes, it's my business. It's my livelihood. It's what I teach. It's what I do. But I want to get back to having fun. And I know that the fun that a lot of you want is to get better and to improve. You can't do that by watching me and listening to me every Monday night if you don't pick up your camera in the meantime. So, that being said, guys, please spend some time with the cameras. Video coming out later this week. It'll be this weekend about kind of some of the finer points of using soft boxes. We're going to talk a lot about feathering. We're going to talk a lot about should you be using a strip box or a full-size soft box or an octodome, or for that matter, does it really matter? We'll talk about grids, some other little modifiers that you can use with soft boxes, all that good stuff, all right? So, gang, have a great week. Make sure you do get those cameras out, please, and go use them. And whatever you do, thank you, and remember these words. Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.